Title: My mother-in-law convinced my wife to get pregnant using her late stepfather's biological material. Start. The doctor looked at me as if he was about to reveal a crime. His voice was careful, heavy. Sir, what you're about to see might shock you. Please, brace yourself. I stepped into that hospital room, and the sight froze me in place. My wife cradled our newborn, but the child's face, God help me, it wasn't mine. It was the unmistakable replica of her late stepfather. The world tilted. My legs held, but barely. My wife smiled weakly, exhausted, as if nothing was wrong, as if the nightmare in front of me was normal. That was the moment the betrayal became undeniable. We had been married 6 years. I thought we were partners, equals. I loved her more than I loved myself. Her mother was difficult, controlling, manipulative, the type of woman who spoke softly but always with strings attached. She lost her husband years ago, a man I later learned was less husband, more obsession. I never liked how she spoke of him, with reverence that crossed into worship, but I ignored it. I told myself I was imagining things. Until that baby arrived. At first, I thought genetics played tricks, maybe coincidence, but the doctor's hesitation, the nurse's pale face, told me this was no mistake. I pressed, quietly. Records, conversations, late-night research when my wife slept. Then I found it. Emails between my wife and her mother, the words cut like knives. He deserves to live again. This child will carry his legacy. Don't tell him until it's done. He'll never understand. She had convinced my wife to use preserved biological material from her late stepfather. My wife agreed. They stole my future and gave me a nightmare. The grief was volcanic, but I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I went silent. Silence was my weapon. I played the role, the devoted husband, the supportive father. I kissed my wife's forehead, thanked the nurses, pretended to love the child. Inside, I was cataloging every detail, every careless word, every file. They thought they had broken me. They thought I would endure. They underestimated the quiet man they betrayed. I started with information, copies of emails, hospital records, legal documents. I built a case thicker than a Bible. Then I turned financial. I moved assets, shifted accounts, redirected investments my wife never knew existed. By the time she realized anything was wrong, I could burn our finances to the ground without singeing myself. I hired a private investigator. Pictures, audio recordings, enough to bury her mother in shame. For months, I smiled at the dinner table, listened to their lies, and nodded. I became invisible, the shadow in my own home. That invisibility was power. The first strike was silent. Lawyers, papers, a custody petition, framed not as anger, but as concern. Concern that my wife was under her mother's undue influence. Concern that the child's conception involved deception. Courts eat that up. The second strike was financial. I froze joint accounts. She couldn't buy groceries without asking me. Every dollar she touched, I watched vanish. She began to panic. The cracks spread. The third strike was public. At a family gathering, I let the truth spill, not in rage, but in calm precision. I read from her own emails, each word echoing through the room like a death sentence. Her uncles, cousins, friends, they stared at her and her mother as if they were monsters. The fourth strike was personal. I met with the hospital board. Their precious miracle procedure had broken laws. They covered it up. Not anymore. Investigations opened, careers crumbled. The same doctor who warned me ended up testifying in my favor. The night it all collapsed, my wife fell to her knees, sobbing, begging me to forgive her. Her mother stood behind her, trembling, rage simmering under her skin. I looked at them both, and I felt nothing. Not love, not pity, nothing. "You killed us the moment you listened to her," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. This was never about a child. This was about control. And now, you've lost everything. Her mother lunged at me with words, venom, curses. I let her. Every syllable made her look more unhinged in front of the lawyers, the investigators, the family witnesses I had assembled. She destroyed herself without me lifting a hand. The court granted me full custody, not because the child was mine, but because the deception proved my wife unfit. She and her mother lost everything: reputation, finances, their carefully constructed facade shattered in a single judgment. I walked away with my name intact, my future preserved, and their empire reduced to rubble. People ask if I regret it, if I regret raising a child who isn't mine. Here's the truth. The child is innocent. The child did not choose betrayal. I will raise him as my own, not because of blood, but because I refuse to let their poison define him. But my wife and her mother, they will live with the ashes, with the whispers behind their backs, with the memory of the night I turned their lies into chains around their necks. I didn't lose. They did. And every time I hear that boy laugh, I'm reminded, not of betrayal, but of victory. Because I am the one who walked away stronger.